Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Dzkan Toys, where I do reviews and share my thoughts on some of my favorite toy releases. Hope all of you guys are doing well. Today we have another review to look at, and it is the Figma Ex-062 Rider Mordred. So let's check out the box and get the unboxing started. Alright, now that we have our Figma Rider Mordred unboxed, let's do a brief introduction of the toy company as well as the character. In regards to the company, Figma is by Max Factory, which is created by the CEO Max Watanabe and Masaki Aspie. They distribute their products through Good Smile Company. They're known for creating highly articulated palm-sized figures, which usually focus on anime characters. As for our character Mordred, she is one of the fan favorites and popular character in the Fate franchise. She appeared in many adaptations such as the manga, anime, and the video game series. She's often known as the Saber of Red or the Knight of Treachery and the son of King Arthur, but she's actually female despite being raised as a secret male heir to the throne. She became known as a rare villain who managed to tarnish a glorious legend at the end of her life. She was conceived between Artoria and her sister, Morgan Le Fay. Just like Artoria from the Fate franchise, Mordred over here is also female, compared to the real-life counterpart of the Artorian legend. Now let's move on to the aesthetics and paint job of the figure. Overall, I do enjoy the aesthetics, but then it is pretty simple because the Rider version of Mordred is also the summer version of Mordred. This means that her outfit is not overly complicated, as she is just wearing a red bikini. Furthermore, in terms of the aesthetics, we do have some extra decoration on her left hand, which is a red colored strap. It's some sort of a wrist strap and does add a little bit to the overall design. The last thing I want to mention quickly about the aesthetics is that her feet is molded in this sandal design. So she's actually wearing beach sandals of some kind. We don't really get too much of sandals in the Figma line as most of them are wearing some kind of shoes. So this is a nice touch, as we know all Figma characters can usually swap out their feet with different characters. This means that you can use this Figma Mordred sandals on other characters that you want to use it on as well. As for the paint job, the Figma Mordred seems to be very nicely done. Just looking at the head, in typical Figma fashion, this version of Mordred's eyes are done in this deeply blue color. Usually Figma does a great job on their eye printing, and this Figma Mordred is no different. I really enjoy the color they chose for the eyes. It really makes the eyes pop and seems very lively. In regards to the hair, this version of Rider Mordred is also better than the last Mordred version that we got, which is the armored Mordred. Why is that? Because for the old one, the hair, at least the copy that I got, it seems like the paint has some sort of a defect for this type of yellowish blondish coloring. The old one, when you look at it closely, you can tell that the paint is not applied as well because there's leftover black streaks or some sort of shades of black under the yellow color. But for the Rider version of Mordred, this release, even looking closely at the head, I can tell that they did a much better job on the hair paint this time. Moving on to the midsection of the body, in regards to the paint job, we just have the bikini done in this red and black color. The red is done in this really bright red, which really pops and gives the figure some flair. So that's very nice. Alright, so are there any negatives in regards to the paint job or aesthetics? Well, first of all, for the aesthetics, because she's in the bikini outfit and she's not wearing her usual armor outfit, the joints for the Figma becomes much more obvious, especially the elbows. So some of you guys may not like the round elbow joints of the Figma, especially when Mordred over here is not wearing any type of armor. It looks more obvious. It's really up to you guys because Figma has always been like this. If you buy a Figma, you know where you're getting into. For me personally, it's alright, it's not that bad, but then again, it's just something to note about. As for one negative of the paint job, it's kind of minor, but I do want you guys to be careful if you plan to pick this Mordred up. Over here, around the chest area, if you guys see here, there's some black marks. So this is actually not on the figure when I took it out of the box, but it's from this black ribbon scratching its paint onto the body. It's really easy to scratch the paint onto the body when you move the articulation of the midsection of the Figma body around for this Figma. So do be careful with that. If you do get some paint on it, it's not the end of the world. I'm sure if you have some alcohol wipes, you can rub it off. Now let's move on to the accessory sections of this Figma. So for the face sculpt, we do have 2 extra face plates. The one attached is the one straight out of the box. This one is a simple one, which has her eyes looking to the sides, and she looks like she is smiling slightly. Here's one of the other faceplate accessories. So this one, we have her in full smile mode, looking forwards, and her mouth is open. Here we have the biggest accessory in this Figma, and probably the more desirable accessory from the Figma of Mordred Rider release, which is this surfboard. In the FGO mobile game Fate Grand Order, the Rider version of Mordred pretty much used the surfboard to beat up her enemies. So it's very cool that we actually have a Figma version of the Rider Mordred. As you guys can see, the surfboard itself is quite big. It's actually taller than the Figma Mordred herself. We have a nice design over here in this blue and gold. All of the patterns are printed on nicely. We have some sort of insignia over here, the golden lines, another image here. We also have this surfer fin here, and on the front side we have 2 type of buckles, one done in this blue and gold, the other done in a black and gold. The line design continues over here with the gold, and I assume one of them is for holding and one of them is for putting the feet in, I guess, for the buckles. We also have a hole over here, this one, and this one is for plugging into the stand. So overall, this is a very nice accessory. Here's an example of Rider Mordred holding her surfboard as a weapon or casually. Let's check out the angle at the back. Alright, so there's actually, just by looking at it right now, I forgot to mention to you guys, there's actually 2 peg insertion points, so we can actually plug the surfboard onto the Figma stand peg here and over here. So in the front side, this one I showed you guys, and there's also one between the straps or right under the strap. Moving on to the next accessory, we do have an extra pair of the left side feet. So what this is that it has an extra peg at the bottom, and you can plug it onto the surfboard either over here or here for the peg. So let's try that out. Here we have Mordred in her full surf mode. What I did was basically peg the feet onto the board in the peg hole in the front. And the second peg hole, you can use it for the Figma stand. The peg on the feet is strong enough that we only need to peg one side of the feet in, and this feet is actually just dangling or standing. So overall, the design and the effect is pretty good. Here's another example of what we can do with the surfboard with the stand. Over here, I actually inserted her non-peg feet into one of the buckles. This way she's more stable. I have to say she looks pretty good in this pose. So it's really up to you guys' imagination of what you can do with the board. Although these buckles, as I mentioned earlier, is for her to hold while she's standing or in combat mode, we can insert her feet inside for some cool poses like this. Next up is the hand accessories. So attached on the figure right out of the box is a set of open palms. Here we also have a set of closed fists. Next, a set of holding hands. So we can have her use these hand styles to hold the straps on the surfboard. Lastly, in regards to the accessories, typical to every Figma release nowadays, we have this extra bag, which we can use to store all the Figma parts. The stand that you guys see Mordred is using right now, as well as this extra wrist peg. We can use this peg in case one of them is lost or broken. Now let's go over the articulation of the Rider Mordred. Since she's not in armor, I assume her articulation will be quite good. For her head, we have the 360 rotation, side to side. The range looks very nice for side to side. Forwards and backwards. For the hair ponytail, we do have a rotation over here as well for this extra protruding part. Now for the arms, all the way up, 360 is no problem. Elbow bend that far. Wrist joints, we have up and down or side to side depending on the angle. 360 rotation. The torso, we do have a front, back, rotation, side to side, waist, side to side, front, back just a little bit, legs kick all the way forwards, backwards, knee articulation. Finally, for the feet, we have a side to side ankle articulation, backwards, really nice, forwards, and of course, a rotation. Next, we have size comparison. First, we're gonna do a very interesting one. It's the original armored Mordred release in the Figma line. The original Mordred, although it's the armored version, we do get an unmasked head, which is over here. Let me swap this on for you guys to check out. Here's the effect once we swap on the unmasked version of the Mordred head for the original armor Mordred Figma. As you guys can see, the new one is a new sculpt, and the new one's hair sculpt actually looks much better in my opinion. It looks a bit more dynamic. Let's take a closer look. On a side note, if you have the new Mordred, because all of the pegs for Figma are usually the same, this means that you can swap the new head design onto the old armored version of Mordred if you like to. So let me try that for you guys. This is what Mordred look like with the new head sculpt. So the armored version, I attached the Surfer Mordred or Rider Mordred's new head sculpt onto the old one. Let's take a closer look again. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. Here's some more size comparison for you guys. First, we have another Figma, our Chaldea Master. Some other similar size lines. We have a 112 Mezco Cyclops, Mayfix Hush Batman. Here we have some more size comparison. SH Figuarts Cell Saga Trunks. And the recently reviewed event exclusive Android 18. Check out that review if you guys are interested. Alright, final thoughts on today's Figma Ex-062 Rider Mordred. Overall, I have to say this release is a unique and special release. I never thought we would have gotten a Surfer version of Mordred from the game, as we already have the armor version, and later this year we're actually getting the Fate Apocrypha version of Mordred in her casual outfit, so I didn't think we would have gotten the Surfer version. But hey, we did, so that's nice. Although this is the EX release, which means it is an online exclusive, we still got it. As for the aesthetics, it is simple, but again, I really do enjoy this Figma with its resculpting of the hair sculpt. As I mentioned in this review, Mordred Rider version has a better overall head sculpt, especially the hair, compared to the original armored Mordred. The extra facial expressions included in this set are also especially welcome, as we can use the expressions and the new head sculpt on the old armored Figma Mordred as well. Although Rider Mordred's design is quite simple compared to the original armored version, the paint job for this Figma, I have to say, overall is better than the original armored release, especially when looking at the head sculpt, which is the most important part to me for a figure. This Figma Mordred, in terms of the hair coloring, is much better compared to the original for the paint quality control. As for the negatives of this release, well, it is an EX release, which means it's a Good Smile Online exclusive. If you live outside US or Japan, it may be a bit harder to grab this figure unless you pay resale price for it. Otherwise, the design of Rider Mordred is quite simple and we don't have too many accessories, but we do get a huge surfboard. And hey, who doesn't want a Mordred with an awesome surfboard? There goes the end of my review for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. Anyways, until next time, remember to stay young at heart, and we're out.